This is a PS5 CFI-1115A. This is the disk drive version, and I'm going to open this up and clean it today, show you how you can remove the motherboard and access some of the other internals. Now, to get these panels off can be a bit tricky. Oftentimes, if you lift up a little bit here in this corner, you can pull the panel towards you. It's not always easy. Sometimes these things are a little stubborn, so you don't want to put too much pressure on them. On this one, let's see if we can just lift a bit and then pull it, and you see it'll kind of slide open like this, and this is dusty. So I'm going to take both of these panels off. I'll flip it over here to the other side. Let's get some of these big chunks out of here. This is what happens over time if you live in a dusty area, and you definitely want to get all this stuff out because it will prevent the console from cooling properly. So on this side here where the disk drive is, we're actually going to lift up on the opposite corner here and do the same thing. So just lift and kind of pull, and it should slide away just like that. And again, as you can see, lots of dust. Now I'm going to take this outside and use my O-Polar. If you don't already have one of these and you want to save a lot of money on compressed air, I recommend this. This is great. It recharges with micro USB, and it has quite a bit of output. I'll show you right now. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow it out once with everything put together still, just so I don't make a mess on my desk, and then we'll go ahead and pull this panel off eventually. But for now, I'm going to start with just this area and the opposite side. Okay, that looks a little better, but we are not finished yet because there's going to be more dust underneath this panel. So what you're going to do is start by taking off this little vent cover here. If you grab it in the middle and kind of lift, it'll just pop right out. There are a couple tabs, one on either side for when we put that back together. I'm going to set this aside. And we also want to remove this warranty sticker and this little cover right here. So this one comes off pretty easy. A lot of times you can just grab underneath here. If not, you can get something to kind of pry it with. It's got pretty strong adhesive under there. I'm just going to set that over here for now. That'll be easy to stick back on. The warranty sticker, you can treat this however you want, really. It does not void your warranty if this is damaged, so I'm not really worried about that. But I do like to just kind of peel it back enough to expose one of the screws that's underneath. So we're going to have, I'll just set this here for now. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 screws that come out of the panel. We're going to have 4 screws for the fan. We're going to disconnect this, this, and this. And we're also going to remove the expansion drive cover. I'm going to do that first. So this is just a Phillips screw, and it's got the PlayStation symbols on it. So we'll just go ahead and take this out, and we can lift, pull it out to the left, and we'll just set that aside for now. With these connectors, you want to be very careful because they have a certain amount of strength, but it is possible to damage the place where they're mounted on the motherboard. So what you really want to do is kind of fish in here, get these wires out first of all, like so. And then if you can, ideally you would grip the plastic itself. It's kind of hard to do, but again, you just have to be very careful with these. And if you gently kind of just, not very much, just wiggle it a tiny bit as you're lifting, that should come out without any damage. These two can be a little trickier, but if we're patient, we should not damage them. So you see these will just come out the same way. I want to get a little slack over here because it's kind of hard to grab a hold of it when there's not much over here in the first place. And if you wanted to, you could actually just undo this thing completely like that. Not necessary, but it might make it easier to remove this. So I'll actually take that out of the way for now. And from here, we need our Torx Security or TR8 screw. This is a Torx 8, but it's also got a, I don't think you'll be able to see that, but there's a hole in the center that is opened up, and that's what you need in order to get these screws out. And by the way, these are different screw sizes and thread types, so you want to keep them organized. And I'm going to go ahead and start with these 4 for the fan. We've got a shroud that goes over the fan, and then we can lift this out itself. This isn't too bad, but we'll go ahead and blow that out also. And then let's just go around the case and get all these out. I'm going to start right here. Once you have those all out, you can actually lift the rear panel just like so. One thing you want to note is there is a small piece of material here that goes in. It's basically a dust cover for your expansion drive, so make sure you don't lose that. These tend to fall out a lot of the times when you pull the panel off. And this isn't too dusty, but we'll also blow this out a little bit. But the main thing here is that now that you've got to this point, you can actually see how much dust is covering up that the vents for the heatsink here. So we do need to remove this so it's not in the way. So you can unplug one or both of these cables. What I usually do is just unplug it from the motherboard here, and then that way we can set this aside when we get ready to reinstall it. It just plugs right back in. And before I go any further here, I am going to take this outside and get the rest of the dust out. Now, if all you wanted to do was blow out the dust, from here you can skip ahead to the reassembly part, but we're going to go ahead and pull the motherboard on this one. So there's a cable here that you're going to just pull to the left, one here, you can pull it straight down towards you, and then I'm actually going to add some 99% rubbing alcohol to these little foam and paper stickers, because getting these wires, the antenna wires out, it's not too bad here, but these are kind of a pain in any case. They never really seem to come out very clean, so just do your best. When it comes to the wire itself, we're going to take a pair of tweezers and make sure that there are no components behind your tweezers, like on the surface of the board, because you don't want to put any pressure on those, but we'll get underneath the metal part of the antenna and just gently lift. Make sure you're not prying the plastic part here, because these like to separate quite easily. So I'm going to come over here and just kind of pry this one straight up. Basically, lifting is probably the best way to explain this. You do not really have to pry. And then as far as these little foam things go, like I said, they're kind of a pain, but the best method I've found to get past them is to just kind of peel them with your fingernail and try to take the adhesive with you if you can, so that we can stick them back down later. Like I said, they never come off very clean. You can also try doing it without the alcohol. I'm not sure it makes a huge difference, but we'll try to preserve these as much as possible, and then just get these antenna wires separated from the metal panel. So yeah, that one came out clean. Alright, from here we have a whole bunch of screws. So you've got one black screw here, silver screws that go all the way around the perimeter, and a couple that aren't going through the metal shield. There's one here and one here, so we're going to take all of those out. At this point, I would recommend that you double and even triple check to make sure that you have none of those silver screws in this panel, because when we lift it up, you're going to feel some tension, and you want to make sure that tension is just the heatsink material that's under here and not one of the remaining screws, because they can hide really well. So what we're going to do is just kind of grab over here and lift, and you'll feel this kind of start to separate like so, and then you're going to hear a pop here momentarily, and that is this stuff right here releasing from over here. So we'll set this aside, and we're going to have one more cable that we disconnect. That's going to be this one right here, and to do that you're going to press straight down on this tab and just kind of pull this thing towards you. And when you do that, it will allow the two little tabs on the side to remain intact, and that's what holds it in place. So you want to be careful with that one. Two more Phillips screws here that are going to come out for the heatsink clamp. And for these, I recommend that you use a PH00 for your Phillips driver. Fits the best. In this case, you don't need to include this step, but since I'm replacing the port on this PlayStation, I'm actually going to take this little bit off of here, set that aside. And from here, you're going to want to have something to protect the liquid metal. So on one side, I'm going to remove this little piece here. And I've got a little piece of plastic here that I use to protect the thermal material on the heatsink itself. I'll show you that in just a second. So when we remove the motherboard, you're going to have to do some prying probably down here. So usually you can kind of lift this, and you'll see that it will come up on this side. But usually you'll encounter a bit of tension here. So what you can do is grab a spudger and just go right under the edge. Don't push this in too far. You don't have to go very far underneath here, but you just want to get in underneath the edge like so and pop that out. That's where the power supply is connected. So I'm going to immediately cover this just to protect it, and I'm going to use this piece right here over the top of this, and I will add some tape just to secure this so it doesn't go sliding around. And you want to tape all the way over the metal piece, because sometimes it likes to pop out as well. And that should be fine. Okay, so we can take our motherboard and set that aside. And I will do the same thing here. I'm just going to tape this into place so it doesn't move. And let's see, I'll put another piece right here. That way this isn't going to go anywhere. Now when we go to remove this, we're going to have to make sure that this wire is free. So I'm going to peel this out from under this little tape. Let's see if we can get this out clean. And if you have any trouble with this, you can always replace it with a piece of tape. It's not a big deal. This is just a adhesive sticker. So now that we've got this out of the way, so I'm going to flip it over, and you'll see that we've got a screw here and a screw here. These are also TR8 or Torque Security 8. So go ahead and take these out. And these are interchangeable, same size. Once these two screws are out, we can just lift this straight up. And you might have to push the connector out here where the power goes in. And then we can remove this piece completely. And here is your power supply. So you see, because we went a little further with this one, we can actually remove a little more dust here. So we can take this out and blow it out as well. And if you have to replace your power supply, that is how you get to it. You may likely have to transfer this antenna system from your existing power supply to the new one, because it probably will not have one. And once you do that and get this blown out, we can put everything back together. Okay, I've got this all cleaned up, blew out all these vents here. You'll still sometimes come across a bit of dust that just wants to be stubborn. It's that sticky kind of material. I'm not sure what this comes from. Possibly people smoking in the area where this is running, but you may have to just kind of manually get this stuff out of the way. And there's one piece of dust stuck right there. Alright, so that is about as clean as we can get this. If you want to remove your heatsink, you would just have to remove these screws. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you can remove this panel. But I can't think of any reason that you would want to do that. But if you do, just take those out and the whole piece will come off. Now from here, we are going to get this thing back into position in here. Okay, if this panel moves around, that's okay. It's actually made to come out this way. So we'll take some maneuvering. Again, make sure your wires don't get trapped. Once this is in, we'll put the piece on top of it, but then we're going to have to flip it over and kind of hold everything together. So we'll set this down like so, and without these two screws holding it, this is going to want to come apart. So what you're going to do is just kind of grip this like so, turn it over, keep holding it, use your hand to keep the rear panel and the heatsink together, and then we'll get these two screws inside, one here and one here. And we can get ready to put the motherboard back inside. Let's get this cable out over here. Gonna need this. Alright, I've got my new HDMI port installed, and it's time to put this thing back together. make sure you have this piece here. Now make sure that both of the tabs of this vent cover actually go into the case, because if either of them are sitting on top, you will not be able to put the panels back on, and these will kind of slide into position. I do give them a bit of a smack, not a lot of force, but just enough to get them to lock into place.